Well, we might as well get started. So, good evening, everybody, and thank you for attending the Lackawanna County Reassessment Town Hall. My name is Howard Rothenberg. I am going to be your moderator for the evening. A couple of things. First of all, I want to thank Lackawanna College for allowing us to use their auditorium. This is a magnificent building. I was told by somebody on the panel it was actually going to be torn down, and Lackawanna College saved it. So again, thank you to Lackawanna College for allowing us to use their facility and hosting this event. Let me do the disclaimer before you start throwing rocks at me and the people up here on the panel. We did not vote for reassessment. Right. Matter of fact, County Commissioner Chris Chermack opposed reassessment. So we're not here to argue the rights and wrongs of reassessment. It's here. It's going to be implemented. We know it's causing a lot of questions, a lot of confusion, a lot of angst in the community, and we're here to try and alleviate those concerns tonight to answer your questions. We have a very esteemed and tremendous panel here that are going to speak on the issues, including understanding reassessment, navigating appeals, using comparable properties in your appeals, exploring relief options like clean and green, and other ways to save taxpayers money. The agenda is going to be as follows. Each speaker will speak on their topic. I will introduce them. I will say a couple of seconds about their background and why they're qualified to speak on what they're speaking on. Some of the speakers may come up here. Some of the speakers may sit there, and they will give their presentations. I encourage all of you to not only listen, but take notes. This is important stuff. We're going to have to deal with it. And if you listen now and take notes, you're going to know what to do when the time comes when you get your bills. I would also tell you there will be a question and answer session after the last speaker will speak. We're not going to do it after each speaker because it's going to jam up the works, but we're going to wait till everybody speaks, and then we'll open it up to questions. So write down your questions. If you want to ask a particular speaker a question, let me know that. If you just want to throw out a general question to the panel, we'll pick the best person to answer it. So, with all of that in mind, let me introduce our first speaker. Our first speaker is going to discuss concerns about reassessment and is our County Commissioner, Chris Chermack. County Commissioner Chermack is serving us in his commissionership. This is his 6th year. He was voted in 2020. He is a self-made businessman, having worked and built up his family business for years. Ladies and gentlemen, County Commissioner Chris Chermack.
Thank you. And really, thank you everybody for coming. I appreciate you all attending. Thank you, Attorney Howard Rothenberg, for stepping up and moderating this for us. And thank you for our panelists for volunteering, mind you, their time. Also, I'd like to thank Dr. Jill Murray, Lackawanna College, for providing this venue for us. Again, she was gracious enough to give us this space at no charge. So everything we're doing here tonight isn't costing the taxpayers anything. So that's a good thing. And I just want to remind everybody here that we're just here to help you, give you some information, guide you through this process, kind of explain how things are going, and hopefully get you some answers to questions you may have. So I'll give you a little history. So we haven't had a reassessment here in almost 60 years. So basically all our houses and our properties and whatever is all based on 1968 values. So they're very old, very out of whack as far as time and values. How this started, there was a lawsuit filed in 2018 against Lackawanna County to conduct a reassessment. So that's how it started back in 2018. In 2022, that's when the majority commissioners, I voted no against this, but the majority commissioners signed a $5.2 million contract with Tyler Technologies, and they're the folks that are doing the reassessment now. Just before, so last year, our illustrious majority commissioners also blessed us with a 33% tax increase, which now we're dealing with this year, which will go into next year along with the reassessment. So that's going to cause some, that's going to cause us to have to spend more money for our taxes. So, again, I had issues with this from the start. In my first term as a commissioner, I don't know if everybody can remember, but there was that little thing called the worldwide pandemic that hit. And the pandemic hit. A year later, they're looking to talk about doing reassessments. To me, that was insane. And that's what I said. I said, why are we doing this now in the middle of a pandemic, trying to start a reassessment? People aren't working. Businesses are closed. The towns were like ghost towns. To me, it was extremely poor timing. And I do understand that it's been a long time, and I know the county needs a reassessment. Things are not right. Some people are paying too much. Some people that built some new houses are getting clobbered with their new assessment values because things are just not fair. So we all get that it needs to be done. I totally understand it needs to get done, but to me it was poor timing. The other issue I have now, and I had then, is nobody ever spoke about safeguards. And I mean safeguards for people on fixed incomes, the elderly. I've had people approach me. One in particular that I always talk about is somebody. I live on $11,000 a year. I've been in my house for, I forget, 60, 65 years. Her husband passed away. She said, I can't afford another penny. And what am I going to do? I said, well, it sounds to me like your taxes are going to probably go up, unfortunately. Now, I'm hoping maybe they won't. I don't know. There's too many unknowns there. But the fact is, she can't afford another penny. I know one of the commissioners mentioned in a meeting, one of our recent commissioner meetings, that, we'll take care of them. We have things in place where they can do payments. They can make payments. I go, make payments? If a pie is this big, I don't care if you cut it in 100 pieces. There's only this much pie. She doesn't have the money to pay her taxes. If they go up 1 penny, she's out of her house. So to me, that's unfair. There's so many things that we can do to protect our elderly. There's things that we can do that other counties do that are in place. I mean, we're not reinventing the wheel. I've had so many people call me about I got my bill. My house was $18,000, now it's $300. Well, I get that, but again, we don't know without the millage, we don't know how that's going to play out. And I try to explain this. Sometimes it's hard to explain, but house values are at 1968 values. Our tax rate is at 2025 values. Reassessment is supposed to be revenue neutral. So that means when this is all said and done, they can't collect any more money than they're collecting now. So it has to stay the same. So to me, what's going to happen is the house values are going to go up to where they should be, and the millage should come down far enough so that when it comes out this other end, we're still only collecting so many dollars. There's a rule of thumb that we use, or that they use, that a third will go up, a third will stay the same, and a third will go down. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. What third will go up? Is it the third that can't afford it? Is it the third that can? Is it the ones that are going down, the ones that can't afford it? The ones that stay the same? Should they be going down? Should they be going up? So there's a lot of things that I don't know. I've heard issues, and I even coming in tonight, some folks. I have a vacant piece of property. It's landlocked. You can't get to it. It's not buildable. It's on a side hill. It's about an acre. I bought it for $5,000. Now they want $65,000 for it. Well, to me, that doesn't make any sense. So those are things that the experts here can explain on how we deal with that and how we move forward with issues on that type of thing. I've heard other issues, a dentist office in downtown, somewhere down in Scranton. It's probably a building that, and I'm not sure because I'd have to go look at it, but maybe a building that's worth a couple $100,000. Well, she got an estimate, or her tax bill is like 2.8 million. So to me, that's a little skewed. I have a person that I know up in the Dalton area that owns property in a wetland, like a floodplain. There's no buildings. It's a small property. He estimates maybe $30,000, and it was 2.1 million. So, again, to me, I don't know. You know, again, till we see what the tax is going to be and what they do, then we'll know the answers to that. So, my concerns right now, and I've spoke about this at commissioners' meetings, that, you know, I get it. I get where we are. I get we need to do this, but first of all, you started at the wrong time. Now we're rushing it. Now we're almost to the end here. Numbers aren't right. There's a lot of inconsistencies. Property values are being, you know, it's a controversy now between the homeowner, the property owner, and what their bill is going to be. So, you know, I said, why can't we put the brakes on here a little bit? Why don't we wait and take a look at these numbers, see what the values are, make the proper corrections. They're having informal hearings now, which I think the timing is closed to the book years, but they're having the informal hearings, taking the information. But the next step is the bills go out. And the bills go out, I don't know, next month or so, and that's when you're going to know what your taxes are going to be. That's when I think I'll fill this room probably. So my thought was, what's the hurry? We've been waiting for almost 60 years now. It's revenue neutral, so they can't make any more money than they're making now. Why don't we wait another year, get through some of these informal hearings, have some formal hearings, get the numbers correct, so that when we initiate this, the values are correct, the millage is correct, because it's going to goof up the millage, and more people are going to say, okay, I get it, I understand, I'm good. That's going to alleviate all the hearings that we're going to get crushed with. There's going to be thousands and thousands and thousands of requests for hearings. We're putting together people that can do the hearings. We'll be able to get them through. It's going to be a day-to-day process all day long, every day, and we're going to pound right through it. But rushing through it doesn't do it for me. It doesn't do it for me. I think there's things that need to be looked at. And again, I talked about safeguards. What are we going to do for the elderly? So there's so many different things that other counties do. They have exemptions, they have deferral programs, they have income-based tax. If that person I was talking about that survives on $11,000 a year, maybe we cap hers and they don't move. When she decides to move away, sell her house, whatever happens, then it goes and it gets taxed to where it should be, to the next person. I'm gonna, in the next section when I talk, I'll talk about things that are available now, like clean and green and stuff like that. But so right now, that's my opinion. I think that we're just kind of trying to push this through too quickly. I mean, I look at this as if I'm going in for surgery and I'm having a problem and the surgeon has me all opened up and they say, well, we got most of the bleeding stopped, but we're going to sew you up anyway, you'll be good. No, fix me now. I want to fix it now before we go to the next step. I think it's going to make it easier for everybody. So that's about what I have on what I've been thinking.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Our next speakers are a team. Attorney Anthony Loma and Attorney James Mulligan are going to talk to you about understanding the reassessment process and appeals. I got it right. Let me tell you a little bit about our speakers. Attorney Mulligan is a graduate of the Pennsylvania State University. All of you Ohio Staters hate it when I say it that way. He got his Juris Doctorate from Antioch Law School in Washington, D.C., and he is also a graduate of the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University. Since 1987, Jim has been practicing mostly real estate law, at Mulligan Law Firm on Bernie Avenue in Moosic, Pennsylvania. Our other speaker, Anthony Loma, is a graduate of Villanova University, where he was a schoolmate of our new Pope. So if you have any questions of Anthony about the Pope visiting fraternities, he's the guy to ask. He then did his graduate work, got his Juris Doctorate at the Dickinson School of Law, and Tony has been practicing law as long as I have, since 1983, in a private practice, also concentrating on real estate. So ladies and gentlemen, here to talk to you about the reassessment process, residential, is Attorney Anthony Loma and Attorney James Mulligan.
Thank you, Howard, and thank you, Commissioner Chermack, for having this opportunity tonight. Reassessment in the county is relatively new, obviously. Last time was 57 years ago. Anything new is scary. You know, we haven't experienced yet, and we don't know what the outcome is. Lackawanna County is a third-class county in PA, and the reassessment for the counties is basically a class 2 county through 8. So we fit in with all the other counties, except for Philadelphia. Property tax calculations are simple. You get your tax bill, and I'll use Lackawanna County as an example because everybody, no matter whether you live in Old Fort, Scranton, Carbondale, everybody gets a county tax. It's the same for everybody, the millage is. It's the assessed value of your property times the millage set by the municipalities, and I'll go to each one of those factors. Right now, for example, a typical house in Scranton might be assessed at $10,000. That's not the value of the house. It's what, at some point in time, it was a percentage of what the actual fair market value is. And obviously, over 60 years, property values have appreciated greatly. Now, Tyler came in and is doing, your new assessed value is going to be actually what they determine is the fair market value. And fair market value, and Conrad can explain, is a willing buyer, willing seller, arm's length transaction. That's what the property is worth. When the county sets to determine its millage, for example, the 2025 final budget of the county, there was total assessed values of $1,579,000,000 and change. So that's the taxable amount of properties they can spread their revenue around. Their budget was $142 million to raise. So they divided it, and let me explain, when your millage, the Lackawanna County's millage now is almost 89. And millage is based on every $1,000 worth of assessment. So you don't, the Lackawanna County's millage is 89. You multiply 89, an example of a $10,000 assessment, it's 89 times 10, factor of 10, and that's $890 is your taxes. So Lackawanna County's budget was $142 million. You divide that by the total assessed values, and you get 0.08998, or if you move the decimal place 3 points over, it's a little over, almost 89 per $1,000 worth of assessment. Now with the fair market value of the assessments, that might go up to $25 billion. Not going to be $1 billion, obviously. So there might be a factor of 18 times what your assessed value is now. And with $25 billion worth of assessed value divided by, to raise $142 million, the millage will be around 5.6, 5.7. My guess is that's what the millage is going to be at, around that number. We don't know. Several factors. We don't know what the total assessment is countywide for all the properties. Presently now you go on the county's website and you can see what your property's assessed at, what your neighbors assessed at, across the streets assessed at. You have no clue as to what your neighbor's new assessment is. They don't know what yours is, you don't know what theirs is. So you have no idea what the effect of the value of your, of the assessment, what that assessment is. The best thing is, and Jim's going to go into the appeal process, is to challenge the assessment. If you feel your house is worth $200,000 and they assess you at $260,000, then challenge it. And Conrad will explain about getting an appraisal done on the property. But I want to make sure everybody realizes what the current millage is 89. You don't multiply that by the new 200,000 value of your house. It's going to skew everything, and that's not how it's going to go. And I'm going to turn this over to Jim on the appeal process, and then I have comments at the end. Yep. There you.
It's, yeah, there,
You have it.
you had it.
There we go. Okay. Well, I too would like to thank Commissioner Chermack for arranging tonight's get-together. It's pretty clear to me from the first two speakers and from a lot of the individuals I've spoken to is that there's a lot of unknowns out there, and we're not sure how things are going to happen or play out. And there's a pretty extensive process which the county has laid out through Tyler Technologies. And so I'd like to provide you with a number of dates that are important and then circle back and fill in what happens at each of those levels. So the first date that's important, and you've all gotten the love letter from Tyler Technologies, is that you have the right to have an informal conference or meeting, if you will, with regard to your properties. So, and that, the informal process stops effective June 1st of this year. From June 1st until July 1st, Tyler and the county are going to get the new assessments prepared and ready and sent out to you by mail. So once you have that new assessment, you'll be in a better position to make a determination as to, well, do I want to appeal this? Do I want to seek the professional counsel or professional realtor? Tony and I primarily do residential work. We have others that do commercial work, but that's going to be your call to determine whether or not you think you need the guidance of a professional. And from the date you get that notice, from July 1st or thereabouts, you'll have 40 days in which to take an appeal. And that appeal would go to the Board of Assessments at the county level. And that's typically made up of 3 individuals, and I believe Commissioner Chermack mentioned that there are going to be a number of panels because the county is anticipating that there will in fact be a great number of appeals by homeowners. And you can understand that. I mean, it's been a significant period of time since this issue has been addressed. And then once you have that appeal, you're allowed to bring a professional, whether it's a realtor, a lawyer, it could be anybody actually, to represent you. You could represent yourself at that level. And that decision has to be made by, I believe it's October 31st, by the Board of Appeals. Once that decision is made, you're going to have another option. You're going to say, okay, I'm good with this, or I'm not good with it. I think this is unfair. I think it should be lower. And so the last step in the appeal process would be to go to the Court of Common Pleas. And clearly at that level, I would strongly suggest that you hire a lawyer, professionals in order to prosecute your case in front of the Court of Common Pleas. So let's go back a little bit. I told you in the beginning that we have this informal process, and I would urge each and every one of you to take advantage of that informal process, because that's a learning experience. Nothing can be decided at that level. But Tyler Technology is responsible to provide you with comparables to demonstrate how did they arrive at that fair market value. So I think it's imperative that we take advantage of that informal process, utilize it to the best of our ability, and then make a determination, okay, I'm going to wait until July 1st when I receive my notice, and then ultimately make another decision. Do I want to appeal to the Board of Assessment, or am I comfortable with what they've now said in their correspondence of July 1st, first week of July? And if you decide that, look, I don't believe that the assessment that they've arrived at is fair and reasonable, then you can, as I said, take it to the Board of Assessment. But at that level, there's a panel of 3. You have the right to produce evidence, take testimony, and as you'll probably hear from Conrad, one of the best pieces of evidence that you could provide at that level would be an appraisal of your property to show the difference between what, the figure that they've arrived at and what a professional appraiser has arrived at. And that's why when you go back to the informal, it's important to look at the comparables that they use to arrive at your decision, or at your assessment, I should say. And there's a lot of learning that's going on at that informal level, because they may have a lot of mistakes. You may have 5 bedrooms. They may say you have 6. You may have, an unimproved basement, and they say it's improved. So it's a real good learning tool at the informal level, and then at the Board of Assessment, you get to produce your evidence, a professional appraisal. That would be the best, in my opinion, or I guess you could do a comparative market analysis would be acceptable to the board. But at that level, then they have to make a decision by October 31st. And then October 31st is the decision by the board, and then November, you can take an appeal to the Court of Common Pleas, but by November 15th, they have to give you the final assessment. And then that can be appealed, as I said, to the Court of Common Pleas. Now, the Court of Common Pleas is all-out litigation. So you would have to prepare, you or your legal representative, a complaint. The complaint would be filed, an answer would be filed, and you get into discovery, and it's a lengthy process. So that's kind of the overall picture of the process. And I really would encourage everyone to take advantage of the informal process, and then if you're not happy with the outcome of that, with your assessment, then at least go to the Board of Appeals. And there are going to be, my guess is there's going to be hundreds of appeals, don't you think, Tony?
I think I talked to an attorney who handles a lot of the assessment appeals, and they estimate it could be 15,000, 20,000 appeals to the Board of Assessment Appeals. And this is something that's going to be on Chris's lap and the other county commissioner, is how to handle that many appeals. And basically, August, September, and October, 3 months to handle at least 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 appeals. You would need several boards working around the clock assuming each appeal is 15 minutes. Some could be longer, some could be shorter. I doubt shorter. I figured out if in those 3 months, if you had 7 hours a day, 5 days a week, 4 an hour for those 3 months, the most they can handle is about 8,000 appeals. And that's working around every day, full days. If it gets to 15,000, I don't see how these are going to be handled, Chris.
So, well, right now, I think they're anticipating, I'm going to say they're anticipating around 7,000, and that's what they're kind of gearing up for.
I think that's the low side person.
Well, it could be. That's still a huge amount of hearings, but we'll see. The truth will come out when everybody gets their bills. That's when, I know, believe me, I will be one of the first ones in line, so I can tell you.
Well, so going back to what I originally said, I think there's a lot of unknowns here, and it's a process that's just going to have to work its way through the system. And unfortunately, we're all going to have to be a part of it until we get to where the taxpayer, most important person in this entire equation, feels comfortable about a fair and reasonable assessment. And I encourage you to really look carefully at your tax bills and take advantage of the process that is provided to you and exercise your due process. Thank you.
And if I just have a couple follow-up, Howard. As Jim said, absolutely take advantage of if you didn't do the informal, and I don't know if there's still time to do informals, do the informal, but definitely as Jim said, appeal to the Board of Assessment Appeals. It's not going to cost you anything. Go in and fight like heck to get your assessment reduced, because you got to realize whatever you're assessed at not only affects next year, it affects the remaining years you own the property. It's an ongoing problem. Bottom line is no one will really know the total effect of your assessment on your taxes until you get your 2026 tax bill. Again, we don't know how much the total assessed properties are in Lackawanna County. We don't know, you'll know your property, but you don't know the full amount of the total assessments throughout the county, which they use, as I explained earlier, to calculate, the municipalities calculate the millage for each municipality. If you get your tax bill in 2026 and you say, whoa, I didn't realize this, you have a right to appeal in 2026. However, the appeal is for your taxes the following year, 2027. So you would have to pay your 2026 taxes. But you always have a right to appeal your taxes every year. But the best thing, as Jim said, is look at your taxes, your new assessed value, and proceed to go through the appeal process. At least through the Board of Assessment Appeals. Doesn't cost you anything. As Jim said, when you get to the county court level, that's where it's going to cost. It's going to cost to file, it's going to cost to go through the pleadings, as Jim mentioned. But then now we're going to go into commercial, I guess, Howard.
Thank you, Tony and Jim, for that informative presentation. Before I introduce our next speaker, I neglected to mention when I opened the program that we are being broadcast and streamed on Electric City TV here in Scranton. So if you feel you missed something, if you want to hear a speaker again, just get on whatever, what do they get on?
YouTube.
ECTV, you get on YouTube. Okay, thank you. What do I know? I'm still waiting for my U.S. mail to show up. But get on YouTube and you can watch whatever speaker again you want to watch. Our next speaker is Kevin Walsh. Kevin is going to talk to you about commercial property reassessment. Kevin is a graduate of Bucknell University. He received his law degree from Syracuse University And since 2019, he has been with the law firm of Horrigan, Kluger, and Quinn, with offices here in Scranton and Wilkes-Barre. So ladies and gentlemen, Kevin Walsh.
Good evening, everyone. Can everybody hear me okay? Fantastic. My name is Kevin Walsh. I'm a partner at Horrigan, Kluger, and Quinn. We have two sides there, a personal injury side and an everything else side. I'm on the everything else side, which includes tax assessment appeals, mostly commercial. I wanted to echo the commissioner's comments regarding the disproportionate effect on the elderly. I've handled a lot of petitions to set aside tax sales, and I've seen it firsthand. So I think the most important thing you could take from tonight, in my opinion, is to do something. So don't, if you're here, you're probably not going to bury your head in the sand anyway. But don't bury your head in the sand. Either, pay your taxes. If you can't pay them, come up with a payment plan with the Tax Claim Bureau. If you can't do that, file an appeal to get them to a manageable level. But do something, because if you just ignore it, eventually your property is going to be up for sale and somebody's going to buy it. And it's very real, it happens, and like I said, I think it disproportionately affects the elderly. So please, 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 don't bury your head in the sand. With that said, I'll come off my soapbox. Welcome to the sexy and exciting world of commercial real estate tax assessment appeals. I can assure you that most times it is neither, but if you're the property owner or if you're one of the taxing entities that are receiving those tax dollars, it is very, very important to you. If you're the tenant at a property and you're under what's called a triple net lease, you're paying the taxes, it's very important to you also. The process for commercial appeals is substantially similar to residential appeals, at least at the first level. For residential, you have your appeal form here. I think it's $35. Commercial has one. These are all on the assessor's website, by the way. Commercial is $125. They ask for some more information, but it's the same process. You fill it out, you send it in, and you're going to have your day in court, your hearing before the appeals board. For the commercial, actually for all appeals, I recommend having an appraisal done. For residential, it's going to be less, in the range of a few $100s. For commercial, it's going to be more in the range of a few thousand because it's substantially more involved. The appraisal for a commercial property, it's going to go through the cost approach, the income approach, the market or sales comparison approach, where for your residential property, it's going to look at comparable sales, and that's pretty much it. But for the commercial appraisal, they're going to look at your books, what are your tenants paying in rent, what kind of income do you have on the property, so it's really involved. But regardless, for any appeal that you're taking, I would advise getting an appraisal done rather than coming in there with, well, this house down the street went for something, and have a certified appraiser give their opinion as to the fair market value. From there, as the previous speakers were saying, the appeal goes to the Court of Common Pleas, and that's normally where we get more heavily involved because it's litigation, and you're in front of a judge, you'll file your appeal, the judge is going to order case milestones and say we want discovery by X date, we're going to have a trial on Y date, and you proceed from there. If you can't settle it, you're going to trial, like any other Court of Common Pleas case. As part of that, you're dealing directly with the taxing entities. You're negotiating what you think the fair market value is. The good thing is the taxing entities a lot of times don't want to have an appraisal done either because it's expensive. So you're there, you've done your homework, you have your appraisal. It makes it that much easier to try to negotiate with them on a number. You say, we have ours, you don't have yours, and you don't want to pay to have yours. And so it helps a lot. Court of Common Pleas, it's a cumbersome process, but in my experience, it helps. You may get to a certain number after your Board of Assessment Appeals appeal, and a lot of times you can get that down depending on the values involved. but a lot of times, in my experience, you can get that down further if you appeal. So why would you appeal? Looking at the numbers as they are now, if you go onto the assessor's website, look up your property, it has an assessed value. You're going to multiply that by it's called the common level ratio factor. Right now, Lackawanna is 16.13. That gives you what's called the implied or imputed fair market value of your property. And then that's basically what you're comparing your appraisal to, so it's apples to apples. With the reassessment, they're going to give you a number saying this is your fair market value. So there's no CLR involved at that point. You're going to get your number on your notice, and then what you're going to do is, in my opinion, look at that, as a residential or commercial property owner, does that pass the smell test? Can I go out and, if I sold my property tomorrow, would I get that dollar amount? Most of us have a pretty good idea of what our properties are worth, what we could get. You could go on, for residential, you can go on Realtor.com right now and get a value of your property. Whether or not that's accurate, that's another issue. So does that pass the smell test? Do you want to appeal? I think generally, if you're comparing apples to apples, if your implied fair market value is a lot less, a lot higher than what you think the property's worth, absolutely. It's at least at the first level, it is not that involved, and especially on the residential side, take a chance. So that's essentially the process. Some strategies on the commercial side. I don't know how many commercial property owners are here. Your appraisal is going to detail all this, but maybe you have an older building, maybe it's out of the way. The economy's hit you really hard. You don't have the tenants that you did, and these are the kind of things that can be taken into account. If there are similar properties that have been sold for a lot less than what the county is saying your property is worth, that's going to be taken into account in your appraisal. But certainly, in my opinion, I always like to have one, residential or commercial, going into even the assessment board hearing, because you have that piece of paper, you have an expert who's sitting there next to you who says, in my expert opinion, based on my training, I've looked at all this is what it's worth. And in my experience, it goes a long way. I think everything else has been covered at this point, so I'll turn it over to Howard.
Howard, before you go, Kevin, Commissioner Chermack, is there going to be a cost to appeal to the Board of Assessment Appeals for this reassessment?
For the formal ones?
Yeah.
Well, he just...
That's the form.
The $35
That's
fee?
normal for a normal reassessment during any year, but I wonder if they're going to,
I'm sure there'll be fees.
there'll be a fee for that. I just wanted to verify.
Kevin, thank you for that fine presentation. Our next speaker, you've heard a lot about comparables, you've heard a lot about appraisals. Our next speaker is going to talk to you about what those things are, what to look for, how to do them, how to measure them, things of that nature. Conrad Bosley is a graduate of the Wharton School of Finance and Commerce of the University of Pennsylvania. Since 1993, he has been self-employed as a certified residential appraiser and broker appraiser in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Conrad is a member of the Greater Scranton Board of Realtors. He was its president from 1995 to 1996. He is a member of the Pennsylvania Association of Realtors. He is a member of the Pennsylvania Board of Realtors, and he is a member of the National Association of Realtors. You get the idea. He kind of knows what he's talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, Conrad Bosley.
Thank you, Howard. Reassessment, it's here. We have to face it. Tony said earlier that the moment of truth comes when you get your real estate bill. I would have to say the moment of truth came when you received that first note from Tyler Technologies and said, is there anything wrong with what we assumed for your house? And I always gave the people, my phone's always ringing up, so I said to the people, be truthful. Now, we'll get a little later why you should be truthful, but one of the things that I always ask people when they call me, they said, my home was assessed at $300,000 or $150,000. Okay, if I came to your front door that day with that amount of money, would you take that, would you sell me your house? And if people say yes, okay, let's talk. If they say, no, my house is worth a lot more than that, then they really don't have a reason to appeal the assessment, and because of the fact that you agreed to how they defined all the parameters of what your house is. They said if you want to appeal, you should get 3 comparable sales in your neighborhood. Comparable sales are homes that are located close to your house. Hopefully the parcel size or the lot size is similar to your house. Hopefully they have the same amount of square footage, same number of bedrooms, bathrooms, total rooms, above ground square footage, below ground square footage. That's what a comparable is. Now, we all know, well, there are no 2 pieces of real estate that are identical. So you want to get it as close to comparable to your house or your home as possible. Look in your neighborhood. You know. And the other thing you can't find out, or you can find out, but you can't say, oh, well, the assessment notice for my neighbor's house was $150,000 and my assessment notice is for $170,000. Yes, those are 2 facts, but they're not going to help you with the fact that you have to demonstrate when you go for the appeal that you have selected homes that are similar to yours. Now, I have seen cases where 2 houses on the same block were assessed at a similar amount. Now, the house next door, a perfect example, the house next door to my house sold within the past 3 months. It would be a comparable sale that I would use if I were going to appeal my assessment that was given to me by Tyler Technology. But it's a little more difficult than that because of the fact that I, myself as an appraiser, has the ability to search databases that aren't commonly available to most people. You can go on Zillow and check on Zillow to see what the homes in your area are sold for. That's pretty accurate. The Greater Scranton Board of Realtors also has a website that is accessed by its members that tells you what the comparable sales are when you set the parameters. You just put on the sheet, it's a bi-level or ranch house, 1,200 square feet above ground, 1,200 square feet below ground, unfinished, with 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and about 3 other living room, dining room, kitchen. That's the simple thing. That would be very simple. But as we know that there are a lot of homes in Scranton and in Lackawanna County that aren't modern. Some of them are 100 years old, some of them are 20 years old. You can try to compare a house in Green Ridge that has 3,000 square feet with one in Glenmara that has 3,000 square feet, but they won't accept them as comparables. I would suggest that if you're going to do this, you would contact a realtor. Realtors can help search neighborhoods and with the parameters that you need to find a comparable sale. A couple things that I have observed, and I have received these calls, and I have had to sit down with homeowners explaining to them why their property was assessed fairly. I have also represented homeowners who I felt that their homes were assessed at a higher rate than they should be. I've also attended informal hearings with Tyler Technologies, and to their credit, I will say that if you go up there prepared with facts, they will listen to you and listen to the reason that you bring to them. Now, they listen, they may have just said, oh, okay, yes, just to get me out of the office, but I would hope that if you have somebody that gives you the facts that would support your idea of value, it would be helpful to you. And as was explained before by Jim and Tony, the process is, after the informal process, then you go before the Board of Assessment Appeals, which is a more formal board. Usually, you should take either an attorney or an appraiser there, and if you have to go to the final appeal before the Court of Common Pleas, you would have to hire a lawyer. As I said, when you explain to the people, we're talking about the value of your home, not what your taxes are going to be, because nobody knows what their taxes are going to be until the actual tax bill comes out. And it's also incumbent upon you to point out any errors in the size. I found quite a few people that are appealing values on vacant land, and vacant land was not assessed at the same level of expertise as residential homes were, because they didn't take into concern topography, wetlands, things such as like that, or any easements that might be on the property. But once again, I would encourage you to appeal and to find out the comparables to your home. As I said, you can call up a real estate agent, and they can say, if they're a friend of yours or a neighbor of yours, they could help you with the search for comparables and then go through the informal review process. But realize that if you tell me, your house is worth a lot more than what the assessed valuation was, you're not going to get very far when you go for the appeal. It's part of the truth. Thank you.
Thank you, Conrad. Our last speaker is going to be Commissioner Chermack again. He's going to tell you some ways to access some programs that can save you some money, including clean and green. Commissioner?
Okay, so now there's only a few things that are available out there right now. Clean and green applies to folks that have typically over 10 acres. That's where it comes into play. Farms, timber, just big pieces of property. If you have over 10 acres, you can apply for clean and green. This has been put in place. Now, Clean and Green started way back, that program started back in 1974. I don't think it's utilized correctly here in Lackawanna County. I'm hoping that once the reassessment finally goes through, that the Clean and Green will be applied correctly. Again, it has to be 10 acres in size, agricultural use, agricultural reserve, forest reserve. There's also, if it's under 10 acres, and it generates $2,000 annually in farm income, you can also apply. So there is a little caveat there. So a lot of people say, well, what if I do that and I want to get out? You can get out. So what happens if you're in clean and green? Say you're in for 15 years. What happens is the county will roll back 7 years and charge you back your taxes at a 6% interest per year. So you're going to pay them back plus interest. But, if it's something that you're not going to do, if it's a farm or it's property you're just going to continue, it can save you significant amounts of money. Somewhere here it tells me, I think it's almost 50 to 70% on your taxes, so it's quite a bit. So Clean and Green is a program that you can apply for on the county website. So go on our LackawannaCounty.org and go under the assessor's office and click on applications. Something else that the state and the federal government has out there is homestead, farmstead. That will give you some relief on some of your school taxes. It's not a lot of money. Each school is different. Some are a little more than others, but it's something out there that can help a little bit. So you can take advantage of that. You can go on DCED and look on that government website and look to see some more information on homestead, farmstead. There's one other thing that's offered, now this isn't for everybody obviously, but for veterans on 100% disability. So any veteran that was on 100% disability, and this you require, it has to be during periods of war. So World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and the Persian Gulf. So if you're 100% disabled from wartime military service and you make under $114,637,000, you can apply and get, you don't pay any property taxes, you don't pay any taxes at all. I do know some folks that are on that program. God bless them, they deserve it, and it's available. So again, it doesn't apply to everybody, but to those that it does apply, use it. So those are the big things that are offered. And again, in our area, because so many of our properties are big, the Clean and Green is something that's certainly I would look into. And I talked about earlier, you know, safeguards, those are things. I'm not going to back down at those. I think we need safeguards in place. I think it's the right thing to do. I don't think just because Mrs. Smith has been in her house for all these years and all of a sudden her tax bill goes up to where she can't afford the house. You know, it's not her fault that the county neglected to do a tax or a reassessment over the years, but the fact of the matter is they didn't. You know, so I'll be fighting for that. I'm still going to try to push to get it extended a little bit. I know not everybody agrees with that, but my opinion is these numbers have to be correct. And the figures need to be correct, the appraisals need to be correct, the millages need to be correct to move forward. We'll see. We have a new commissioner coming. There was a bet we'd get a new commissioner before we get a new pope. Well, we might get a new pope before we get a new commissioner. So we'll see what this next person, whoever that is, gets in and how they think. In Lackawanna County, it takes 2 votes. Takes 2 to tango. 2 votes, you can get anything done you want to do. 2 votes is what kicked me off all the boards and authorities that I was on in the previous time, but hopefully if this new person comes in, I can get on some more boards and authorities. But at any rate, I'm fighting every day for the fairness for everybody, and this includes the people that didn't vote for me, so don't get me wrong, I work for everybody, but this has to be fair to everyone, and I'm going to continue to push for that.
Thank you, Commissioner. So that ends our program. We do have a question and answer session. There is a microphone up here in the front for those of you who would like to come up and ask your question at the microphone. If you're bashful and shy and you don't want to do that, if you stand up at your seat and just make sure your voice is, what? Oh, you got to get on the mic. Okay, I'm being told by the director of our program, you got to get on the mic. If you want to say your name, you can. If you don't want to say your name, that's fine too. We have our first contestant. If you want to direct your question to a particular expert, that's fine. If not, the panel will answer.
Hi, my name is Amos Vered. I own a piece of property up in Clark Summit. It's a house, and they did their thing, Tyler Technologies, and I'm fine with the original letter that they sent me. A couple of drawings were wrong. They made it like a 1-car garage. It's that's fine. I also own 2 properties in a place called Eagle Lake Community Association in Daleville, Pennsylvania. Mr. Tobin, are you in the crowd? There you are. I've had several nice meetings with you, right? We spoke about Eagle Lake. What is Eagle Lake? It's a recreational community of over 3,000 properties. What's a property? It's a lot, 50 feet by approximately 100. Some of them are 60 by 120, but they're approximately 50 by 100 postage stamps, I call them. And on those properties, because it is recreational, originally back in '81 when it was established, you could pitch a tent, you could pull on a trailer, and so on and so on. The trailer industry got sophisticated, and they created something called park model homes. A park model home is a mobile home cut in half, less than 399 square feet. It'll have a bedroom, it'll have a kitchen. It looks like a tiny, it's probably bigger than an apartment in Manhattan, but it's basically an apartment on wheels. But it is up to RVIA standards, which is the standards for the recreational vehicle industry. Everything in it is made just like a regular towable RV, fifth wheel, and so on. So all these years, these people, we get assessed for our lots, because an RV is a motor vehicle. It gets a title from the DMV, just like a car. So these lots are just pieces of land, and they're assessed. They took some assessment value. Mine was assessed at $4,150, the next act was $6,000, and we appealed it for $35, and mine went down, and up and down, and up and down. They never wanted to look at the RVs or the PMHs because they can't be assessed. They can't be assessed because they're motor vehicles. Mr. Tobin agreed with me several times. First at an informal meeting in your office, and then the informational meeting at the North Pocono Intermediate School, I believe that was. Tyler Technologies, Samantha Edwards stood up there, she agreed. Then we get the zing letters from Tyler Technology. My property is assessed at $21,000. Originally it was $4,150. Boom, $20,000. Naturally, I get on the phone, and she was kind enough to speak to me rather than having one of her agents. And I said, "What's up? We're just a piece of property. That's all you can assess us." "Well, you're connected to sewer, electricity, and water." I go, "So would it in our recreational vehicle, like a fifth wheel or a pull-along trailer? What would be the difference?" "Yeah, but it doesn't look like you're going to move it real soon." "How do you know that?" "It's got a hitch. It's got wheels. They're inflatable wheels. You put a truck on it, you rip it out of there." So I'm not clear, because you speak about houses, appraising houses, and so forth. How would someone like yourself walk onto a property that has a recreational vehicle and give it a value?
Here's what I would do and what I've done. I've done a lot of work in Eagle Lake. And I've documented in the past 5 or 6 years, vacant parcels have sold between $15,000 and $25,000 in Eagle Lake. So that number, that's just on the land, because 95% of the people that sell homes in Eagle Lake sell for a total price, say $70,000, $75,000. So it's hard, first of all, it's hard to get mortgages on them because you're selling a car in a lot.
Right.
But I would have to say that my research on vacant parcels in Eagle Lake that have sold were in that $15,000 to $20,000 range. So, and once again, you're not going to know what your taxes are going to be until the millage comes out.
Right, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Right. But my confusion is it's causing a massive panic. People are trying to sell off properties now because they're going, "Oh my God, I used to be $4,000.
Well, I mean,
now I'm 20.
I would have to say that it was a factor of not understanding the difference between the assessment and the present assessed valuation and what the millage will be on the new property.
So your gut feeling, it's going to be adjusted upwards and downwards to
Yeah.
kind of stabilize it?
Yes, right.
So-
So, as I said, I'm in Eagle Lake more than I want to be, but
So am I.
but anyway, I am very familiar with, the concern of selling them, because you're selling the lot and then you have to sell the titled vehicle in addition to that.
That's correct, that's correct. So it's almost like taxation without representation,
Yeah.
because the town has 1,800 residents. We're over 3,000 residents.
Right.
And we can't vote. So everybody goes, "Why are we paying school tax if we can't send our kids to school?" Because it's not a primary residence. It'll never be a primary
You can't
residence.
stay over the winter.
Yeah, it's basically a place you go and you hang out for the summer. Thank you for your time, guys.
Thank you. Next question. Oh, we got 2 contestants. Okay, You're in the waiting room.
Hi, I'm Jack
the
Powell.
makeup
I just
chair.
wanted to bring some statistics there. You're saying that by June 1st, you can appeal,
You can have your
informal.
informal.
Beginning of April, I got an email plus some other ones. When you called, they said they're not accepting any. It said that the review scheduling has been closed. So you can't go by that, and that's in early April. So I've called and I've gotten emails that you can't, informal appeal doesn't work. And that was just by the phone. You said that you went up, I believe.
Well, yeah, yes, I did.
But
I had a
the
client
informal
that-
appeal is
The
closed.
state statute says that by June 1st is the deadline for them to do all the informal appeals. Obviously, they got hit with so many that they don't have enough of time slots available.
Okay.
And it's same thing's gonna happen with I think the Board of Assessment Appeals. You're gonna have the same issue of running out of time.
All right, I just wanted to bring that up.
No, and I wouldn't accept that answer if I were you.
All right.
I would, no, let me, I would, oh, I'm sorry. I would push that issue
Okay.
with the county and Tyler Technologies, because you're entitled to that informal. You're entitled to have them provide you with the comparables that they use to get the fair market value of your property. And incidentally, we've been at hearings, these informal hearings, where they say your hearing's at 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock, and there's nobody scheduled before or after. So how could they possibly be booked?
Okay. Well, I just wanted to put it out there in case there's other people that didn't get in. There are people that couldn't get the informals.
That's a great point, and I would encourage everyone to make sure that you push to get that informal hearing scheduled, and if they're reluctant to give it to you, go down and see them.
Thank you. Next question.
So my name is James Cohen. I live in Clark Summit. We just had our house. We bought our house in November of 21. Had it reassessed in 22. They brought the taxes down, and so we did the comparisons and everything. So when we got our millage, it said our house was pretty much double what we know it's worth. Plus they had 300 extra square feet. They had we have a boiler, but they said we had a central heating and air conditioning. And they also said that our house was built in 2000. It was built in 1940. So I don't know I called them and they said, well, take that under advisement. But a house built in 1940 versus 2000 changes the entire dynamic. So now, what is that supposed to mean? I mean, I told them on the phone, I'd be a moron not to sell you my house for what you're telling me it's worth. I'd sign it over right now if anybody wants to bring me the check. I'm very serious because it's absolutely ridiculous. Plus, they compared it to another house. So our house is about 1,800 square feet. They compared it to a house with 2,400 square feet, the other side of town, which is much nicer. And I would die to have that house because my house is a fixer-upper that had no electricity or sheetrock when I bought on the second floor. We had to put all that in. So it's not even close to finished. So that's my dilemma. What is the process? Because we talked to them, but you're saying we don't know anything.
Did you go to the informal review?
No, I talked to them on the phone because that's what they sent us, to call them to set up a meeting, which we did.
Because I know when I got my first notice, they had a picture of the house next door to mine. They had mine all screwed up. They even had my own house, and it was all screwed up. They had too many bedrooms, bathrooms, everything. But I had after the informal review, there were some other issues, and I was permitted to email the changes, pictures, and everything to Tyler. But Conrad, you were going to say something?
No, I would just say that did you have a conversation with them and explain what you just explained to us?
Yes, I told them. And they said, we'll take that under
I would hope
advisement.
that they took that under advisement, so when the next letter comes out, you'll be more satisfied. But if not, you should get somebody to represent you.
Yeah, it sounds like you had your informal review over the phone.
Telephonically.
Yeah, that's all they offered in the
Yeah, it sounds like you had your informal review over the phone, so the next step is going to be, you're going to get that notice, and hopefully they did take it into account with a new number.
So if they didn't, then I have to pay $35 and do the work for them. Because again, 2000, 1940, boiler versus furnace.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
if they
saying? Like,
didn't,
it's them making up their own thing, and it's totally inaccurate.
if they didn't take it into account, that's the appeal to the assessment board is the next step.
So then I have to pay $35 and take a day off of work, and I have to then appeal their mistake and their incompetence.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Which is what it is, because I don't know how else to compare
But
that.
again, you correct the problem now, you save yourself money. Next, how many ever years you own the house? Next 20, 30, 40 years. So
Well-
it's worth to correct the problem now.
If they raise it the way they're saying, I'm leaving the county because I can't afford it. I have 5 kids.
Well, here's the thing, if everybody's property goes up 20%, it's gonna stay the same, because everybody's property's gonna go up, value. It's just whether how, somebody's gonna go up 30%, and somebody goes up 10%. But again, as everybody said, you're not gonna know till you get the new assessment, what the total millages, or sorry, the total assessed value throughout the county. And then you can be able to apply it, to figure out the millage and apply it on your assessed value.
I'm just curious, did they provide you with any comparable sales? They did?
Oh, yeah,
Did they
houses.
email them to you
They told me I'm over the phone.
over the phone?
Houses, like I said, 400 to 500 square feet more that were finished, much bigger houses that I would trade in a heartbeat.
If I were you, I would email them or call them and tell them that you'd like the comparables emailed to you.
I just don't understand the rush if they're this off on so many things. Why we can't make sure they get it right,
So-
because my taxes would double.
Well, right,
Based
so
on the
let's
the
hope
value.
that the
That's
theory
all.
behind the informal hearing is to make the corrections, on their part. So, unfortunately, we're not gonna know what it is until you get your new piece in the mail. But again, until we initiate this new budget and new reassessment, we'll see. But just watch what they did, see if they made the proper corrections. That's what they're supposed to do.
Okay. So I guess it's wait till you pass the bill to see what's in it, is what it sounds like with,
Well,
we won't know
kinda.
what the assessments are until they send it to you.
Kinda.
Yeah,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Well, you know what's interesting is that they've undertaken this same process in Sullivan County, not Tyler Technologies. But in Sullivan County, hold on one second, I just want to make sure I get this right. Or Schuylkill County, excuse me. They're providing the taxpayer with the old valuation, the old tax amount, the new valuation, and an estimate of the new taxes. So it's not a real surprise when John Q. Public or Jane Q. Public gets their tax bill. Now, look, I'm not finding fault with Tyler, because it could be an expectation that may not come to fruition, but in Schuylkill County, they provided the taxpayer with an estimate of what they thought. And, it's mathematics, it's a reasonable assessment or adjustment, so. But that's not what we're doing here.
Okay. Thank you.
Before we bring up our next questioner, I just want to emphasize what the panel is saying here. Just because Tyler Technology says this is what your property is worth, doesn't make it right. I mean, you've heard stories already where they've made mistakes. I can tell you in my firm, when these letters came out, what was it, 2 months ago now, last month, whatever it was, we got inundated with phone calls from our clients, and I told all the clients the same thing. Make your phone call, do your informal hearing, and find out how they arrived at the value. Well, we had clients coming back to us saying that they told him his basement was finished, it wasn't. They told one client he had a pool, he didn't. So they make mistakes. They make mistakes. One of our clients asked for comparables. We don't have any. That was the answer he got. We don't have any. All right, so again, challenge this number, just don't accept it. Next question.
Good evening. Bob Bolas, Scranton. Chris, thank you for setting this up. Panel. Mr. Rothenberg, thank you. You're doing a hell of a job keeping things in order. I own numerous properties through Lackawanna County and other areas, both commercial and residential. I've gone through a living hell with Lackawanna County trying to sell my properties and tax sales when there's litigation already pending and it's been ignored by the attorneys for the tax claim bureau. Major litigation is going to be coming down against them because the way they do things. I have filed, as you gentlemen are aware or not aware, but I'm making them aware, I have already filed a lawsuit against the assessment and also against the tax increase that they gave us. We need answers, but not from those that are doing it. We need answers in the courtroom. And I'm asking people to understand where we're going. As you know, litigation's expensive. I'm looking forward to putting it as a class action suit. We already have attorneys that are interested. The more people that join this, it's going to be strength in numbers. I've listened to appraisals, and I've had appraisals on properties. I've been around here 50-some years with companies, and to me, it's a lot of BS. It's all based on assumption. Well, we think you could sell your property for this, or you could get that. Everything's based on an assumption. But all the realtors I deal with have a huge portfolio of all these unsold properties. So assumption doesn't go anything. It's the reality of life. Who comes up with the cash? That's who does the buying. And we hear, oh, you better drop your price, you better do this, you better do that. I had a property in Barnesville. I had a realtor tell me it was only worth $1.5 million. I put a sign out front and sold it for $7.5 million. So how do you base it on an assumption of one of my truck stops? This is where you get, and all due respect, I've known you many, many years, and I've known everybody else here a long, long time. This isn't being disrespectful. You've given us a well of information, and I hope everybody's taking notes, but we're only going to wind up in one direction and one direction only, and that's going to be in the court of common pleas, where we're going to get our answers and we're going to get justification and we're going to get fairness. We could not deal with their assumptions saying we think you could sell it for this or you could sell it for that. We all know that ultimately in the long run, it's going to be costly, so if we do it as a class action suit, it's not going to be that costly because we're all going to be pulling up pennies. Who's compensating us to take a day off, come in and go argue over it? People lose a day's work, pay money to do it, and it's all arguing over BS because they're going to do what they want. I called technology down there and couldn't even get an answer. So I don't have time to waste. I'm busy, and so is a lot of other people. But then you said we're in deadlines, we're this or that. So the only avenue is the courtroom, and then we'll all get the right answers. Everybody will be there, the experts will be there, and we'll get the true answers, not assumptions. But thank you guys for being here tonight. Thank you, sir, Mr. Rock. Chris, thank you for sticking your neck out for everybody. You've done one hell of a job as a commissioner for the community. You do give a damn about the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bolus. Next
And
question.
don't forget about our convenient parking at the county building.
Hi, Kevin Gilbride. We have a commercial property in Lackawanna County. I have a question that it's about a 14,000 square foot building. We occupy 7,800. Nonprofit occupies 6,300. The appraisal they put on the land and the building is, to me, it was a crazy number, but they've said because the building is rented out, the number was higher than if it was vacant. My question is, if the tenant that's leasing that property is nonprofit, is that a category for a deduction?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that the appraiser is going to take into account for sure. You know, you have the cost approach, the sales comps, and then you have the income, and that's based on the income that's coming in from rent. So if it's not that much, you know, that may be one of the factors that the appraiser hones in on and says, you know what, it's not worth X, it's worth Y because of the tenants who are in this property. And that may be for any host of reasons. Like I was saying, it may be a building that's out of the way, it may be an older building, you know, maybe new tenants are looking for something else. Whatever it is, that income is low, and that has to be taken into account for sure.
And if it is at that value, at the end of the lease, when the building, if the building becomes vacant, then do you go back in and get reassessed now? Because now it's like the county's your partner. It's like your partner. The more money you make, the more money they get, when it's still the same piece of land and same building.
Yeah, I mean, aside from the reassessment, anybody can appeal their property taxes at any point. You know, it would be for the next tax year, but you can certainly do that. If you have a change in circumstances, they're going to look back a couple of years for your rent. But if you're consistently unable to bring in rent for this property, or it's consistently lower, then yeah, that's something you want to take a look at, get a new appraisal, and take a shot.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Gentlemen, Keith Eckel, great job. And I think this is just a point of clarification, but I think it's important that everyone realize this. Commissioner, you have noted that the total taxes cannot increase, I believe, for 2 years for the county. Having said that, the largest part of our taxes is in the school district. My understanding is that the school district, nor the local municipality, has that same limitation. Is that true?
I'm under the understanding that nobody can do a
Yeah,
tax
I
increase.
think it's for all municipalities.
It is for all.
I defer to the attorneys, but my understanding of it has been it's for all municipalities, like school districts, townships, county, things like that.
Did you hear the question?
No, I'm sorry.
Could you repeat the question?
Certainly. I had been under the impression that the only municipality limited to the increases was the county, that for 2 years they could not increase the total. My question goes to, is that also true for the school districts and the local municipality?
I believe it's for, I believe it's for all municipalities, whether county, school board, or the township or the city. But I can look and I could give you a call tomorrow on that for sure.
That'd be great, because I think that would be a major concern, considering the different tax rates, and the school districts are definitely the larger part. Thank you.
Next question. We have 2 contestants. Who's going to reach the microphone first? There we go.
Thanks, I'm old. Hi, my name is Joe Healy. I live in Scranton. One question I have is about transparency in the county for Commissioner Chermack. Mr. Bosley mentioned about researching different things and the different places you could go and get data. For the last several years on the county level, the assessment website has become horrible. If you have a PIN number, you could find things out. At one point, you'd be able to put in a street, Lincoln Street, Scranton, Carbondale, Old Forge, boom, they'd all populate. Now you have to narrow everything down to a gnat's butt and able to get a little bit of information. So I've been around computers for 52 years. And I know things have changed dramatically over the years. I don't know why the citizens can't have access and have a better searchability on the county website. So I'd just like to make that input to Mr. Chermack. Maybe he could...
Well, I've noticed that, because I look, obviously lately I'm looking myself, and
Right.
you have to have a person's name, you know, it's
Right.
not easy. So, you know, I'm hoping that maybe we can get that updated. You know, it is the 90s, so we should be able to see all that
exactly.
stuff, right? So,
feeding off of that, why couldn't we get access to the information that's just been generated? It's all out there.
Yeah.
right.
If you could, you know, question the other commissioner or the agency and maybe make that available,
Yep.
it might help out the citizens rather than chasing down all these rabbit holes.
It absolutely would, and
Yes, sir.
these are also good questions for commissioner meetings, too.
I would have to add that as of the first of this year, the Greater Scranton Board of Realtors, through their website, has accessed a program where you can type in address or last name, first name, or PIN number, and get that data for Lackawanna County. So
Okay.
it's out there.
Right.
It was expensive, you know, it cost each realtor, you know, maybe $5 a month or something like that. But I mean, but if you have 500 realtors, it's
Sure,
not that,
sure.
but it's an expensive program. But the program is out there where you can get that.
Okay, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Next question.
Yeah, you could ask the other commissioner, that's funny. Mark Payne, I have actually a lot of questions and problems.
You have 5 minutes. You have 5 minutes.
Is that it? 5 minutes? Well, I mean, like most people here, my concern is it going to be done accurately and fairly? I'm sure that's everybody else's concern as well. Like Mr. Bosley said, back in October, when I first got my first letter from them, it had a little picture of my house, had a little drawing of my house, and then everything else was screwed up. And it gave you 5 days or 7 days, I think, that they said to respond. So I did that. And instead of mailing it in, I drove down 5th floor, government building, and I went in and talked to a girl by the name of Brittany. And I showed it to her. And I said, this picture, is this when they came to my house and did the appraisal? That's when they took this picture? And she says, well, yeah. I said, so this drawing here of the floor plan of my house with the measurements, that's when they took this picture? Yeah. I said, okay, so they screwed this up, they screwed this up. This is wrong, you know. I said, so when they got all this wrong, that's when they took this picture. And she just looked at me. She must have thought I was nuts. Yeah, she said, yes. I said, okay. So then I flipped over the sheet to another page. And I said, so when they took this picture of this house, that's when they did this measurement and this little drawing of the floor plan and all that. And she says, well, yeah. I said, you know what? I said, I'm not even going to go into what's wrong with it. I said, you want to look at this picture for me? And she stared at it. She says, what am I looking at? I said, exactly. I ripped that house down 4 years ago. That was next door to me. I had 2 houses on one deed. I said, so are you sure they actually came out to my house and did all this? And she put her head down. She says, well, we'll get somebody right out there. We'll make sure we get this all straightened out. I said, okay, great. I'll wait to hear from you. The next time I heard from them is when I got the appraisal in the mail. That's through the roof. So, of course, I scheduled an in-person hearing, which took forever to get because I have 4 properties, 2 of which are commercial. And that was the only reason they actually gave me an in-person hearing. It was scheduled 40 days out. That gave me enough time to rearrange my schedule because I'm self-employed. I made sure I was there. They tell you be there 10 minutes early, bring all your paperwork with you, make sure you do everything on time, blah, blah, blah. I abided by their rules. Got there 15 minutes early. Sat in the waiting room, waited for 40 minutes. Oddly enough, Brittany walked out of the back room and said, we're canceling today's appointments because the sheriff's department didn't send a deputy. So she threw the sheriff's department under the bus. I said, well, that's unacceptable. She said, well, give us your name and your phone number, and we'll call you and reschedule this. Well, I don't really have another choice. Okay. I walked out the door. I called Sheriff McAndrew and asked him. He sent me the email from Tyler Technologies that said they requested deputy service Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, whatever it may have been, up until May 5th. My hearing was on May 6th. So they were in panic mode, and then they ordered new deputies to be in for the rest of the day. My questions are, what do I do from this? I haven't heard from them. It's a week now. I've tried emailing them. I've got no response. I've tried calling. The line's busy. I start calling at, 8:01 in the morning. It's busy. Right through. And I can't sit on the phone all day. How do people like this, I'm sure I'm not the only one that's had similar situations. How do these people handle this? Do I just sit back and wait? Because I'm knowing, like, this appraisal that I have on my house is just so crazy. I'm sure it's definitely with the two houses, even
At
though
this
one's
point, I think the
missing.
best thing to do is email, do you have their email?
I do.
Attach me to it, and then I can check on it.
Oh,
You know,
okay,
I mean,
perfect.
I'll do that. I'll do that for anybody.
All right.
I can't answer why their phone is busy, but,
Yeah, it's busy nonstop. Is it like an 844 number, something like that?
okay.
Yeah, so I'll try it again. I'll try it again tomorrow.
Well, email, send that as soon as you can,
Yeah,
attach me.
I'll do that tonight. And then I have another question actually for you, because my one business property that I think is astronomical, you had mentioned about tenants and income and all that they take into consideration. I have an auto repair shop. Without me, there is no income. There are no tenants. So it's basically four walls and a roof. It's still a garage. So do I still have to go through, I should still get just an appraisal? They'll figure all that out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
For a
Well, thank
commercial
you.
property, I would always do it.
Yeah, all right. Thank you. And thank you for
Thank
putting
you.
this on tonight.
Next question.
Tom Chopay from Dixon City. Just a point of clarification on this informal hearing. I got my letter that said you have 10 days to appeal. I called. They set up a date. I went up there, I presented my information, and all the clerk just took information and said, okay, that's fine, you should hear from us. If you want to take the information that I presented, photographs and everything, you could take them down to the government center and leave them there. But I'm hearing from other people who showed comparables and all this kind of stuff. It doesn't seem like it's a uniform system that they're using. And that's what I find very, very frustrating. And I don't know, did I do the right thing? Did I have an informal hearing or did I not? That's my question.
Well, it's not a hearing, it's
Informal, whatever.
review.
Review, okay.
They only take down information. They can't change anything.
Okay.
They take down your comments. I know when I went, they said, what do you think your property's worth? You tell them, you know, that they went over what I had corrected and sent back, and then they said, is this correct? Yep, yes. And then I asked for, the guy didn't mention comparables. I asked for comparables. I said, can you email them to me? No, I can't. So he gave me the addresses. He told me to look on Zello and Realtor.com to look for my own comparables that they did. And I agree, it's frustrating process. But they cannot do any changes. Their only function is to take down your comments and higher up the chain, somebody will make a decision.
All right. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next question. Any other questions? Oh, there we go.
Hi, I'm Teresa Henderson from Scott Township. We didn't find out until February 2025. Our mail's always screwed up. We have an Oliphant zip code, but live in Scott Township. So when we finally did get it from Tyler, we actually got our taxes for this year, which were 33%, which I had no idea either, because we do not watch cable TV or the news. And we watch our grandkids and our great-grandkids, so we're kind of busy. My husband and I are both disabled. We live in an in-law house. We did that so that we can take care of each other. Since we bought the house back in 2014, we both became disabled. But I'm sorry. So anyway, I did call down there because we also got saying that we were delinquent from the year before, which I've never been delinquent. We went down, I went and paid both of them, took money out of my 401k. And down in the county office, they told us that many people complained they didn't get last year's bill and were delinquent. So of course we ended up having extra fees and stuff on top of it. So then when we got our letter and saying, is this all right? When I went down to pay the bill, I knew the square footage was not right. They had us down for 2,884 square feet. Our house is around 15, maybe 16. They included a breezeway that is not even, all it is a covering. The house was built, and I think the breezeway might have been built afterwards, and all it is a covering to get to the garage. And they included, instead of a two-car garage, the person that built it had a business on the one side. So he used the one side for a garage and the other side as a business. Has no windows, it had a door. So they used that as a living space. And we have, over the garage, there was a space where there's some kind of, what kind of board in here? Anyway, it's cancer cause and stuff, and we had to put, it cost us a lot of money to put paint on it. And they were trying to say that that's living space. Clatter?
Got a little bit of a problem with disability. What she's talking about is over the garage, when we bought the house.
Can you get closer to the microphone?
I need to get closer?
Yeah.
Okay. When we bought the house, it was particle board that was all above that garage. So I put a coat of paint on it because it's toxic. I mean, when you read up on it, I think it's arsenic that they put in it. So they're coming up and telling us that they increased the size of the house by 1,000 square feet from the 1,600 square feet, okay? And we went through the informal process, which I don't know where you're hearing June is the end of this,
We were
because
told-
that's not what we were told.
We had I think on the 29th, and I think that of April, and that was the last day of it, unless they increased it.
June 1st is the last day.
Well, I think, you know what, I see-
Under statute, the last day they
I
can have
hear
them.
what you're saying, but you know what, try calling and see if anybody answers.
Well,
I'm not trying to be a smart ass with that comment, but
but we did have the informal, and we worked our butts off, trying
To document.
To try to document. Since we've been disabled, we need new flooring, windows, bathrooms that we cannot afford right now, or probably may never. And they took our home. We paid $175. They have it up to $372,900 something.
in 14 years.
And I did talk to Samantha the first time, and she says, well, didn't you remodel? I said, no. We bought the house in 2014. He became disabled in 2016. I became disabled. I left my work in 2016 because of medical reasons, but I didn't apply for disability until 2018. So, and meanwhile, too, like I said, we live in an in-law house. My son and my daughter-in-law has 5 kids, and we have one great-grandchild that one granddaughter and great-grandson just moved out about a year ago. So we try to help each other. So we did take pictures of the flooring that has been lifted, coming up, and windows that the seal's broken, and some of them won't roll out without being broken, and so you can't open them. Our bathrooms, our tub, we were going to remodel about 5 years ago, and we gave the money to.
For other problems that have
No,
been
well-
coming up. You know how
Well,
you live in a house.
Yes, but my sister passed away, and they didn't have money for her funeral. So me, my husband and I and my other sister paid for the funeral, so that pushed the bathroom. And like our tub, like
I showed them pictures. We have stuff that is sealed so that we can still take a shower and stuff like that. It's clean, but it needs to be redone. And there's no way. I mean, I look at also the houses. We could not find a house comparable in our area in the time frame they wanted, because they wanted June, I believe it was June 1st or June 1st, 2022 to
January 1st to 22 to
right to 2024. And there was nothing in our area. In Scott Township, when something goes up for sale, it usually sells pretty fast. But there was nothing. So we had a kid, thank God my daughter-in-law knew a real estate agent from Wilkes-Barre, and she dug into it for us. And they still weren't, they were definitely lower than what our house was. But she got us at least in the time frame. But it's just very frustrating. And I don't understand, like I told Samantha, I said, I thought I lived in the United States of America. I thought that when you bought a home and you were younger, you built, that's when you did most of your remodeling stuff. You get older, you retired. Unfortunately, both of us had to retire earlier. Your taxes are lower because you had your house for a longer time. If you have, I have my brother-in-law here also. He inherited my father-in-law's home. So he's gonna get whacked because here that's been in their family since his grandfather. So that's, I know they're saying fair and stuff, but in a way, when you look at it, when you think, when you're younger and you buy that home, when you get older, you don't have the money once you're on Social Security. And we've been eating up our 401k like crazy between taxes. And they're saying, okay, there's no taxes being done, like the reassessment's being done. But my taxes have been going up every year. I mean, we started out with that. I think when we bought the house, it was not quite 3,000. We're over 5,000. So it's not like my taxes haven't been increased. Because matter of fact, I was thinking about going to the county to try to get ours lowered because of the situation we're in. And, but then all this stuff came in the mail and I was like, well, I guess I'm not doing that. But it's like we sent pictures. We sent, I think, almost 4 emails to Taylor because of all the information that I had. I did pictures of the floor. Like I told her, I said, I'm embarrassed because I would love to have this redone. But it's reality.
Medicare, and we both have disability, and the grandchildren. But the one thing,
I'm sorry.
wait, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask, did Tyler Technologies tell you that they were going to
They did.
take all of that information that you have and
Yes,
review?
and we haven't heard
Yes, they
nothing.
did.
Okay.
Now, we've seen the paperwork that came in today. Now, ours has been messed up since the very beginning. We never got the original letter telling us what the assessment was.
Right. I had to go
Okay?
downtown
She
twice.
had to go downtown to get it. And that's where the 372,000, I think it was, came up.
Right.
So, taking that, we did all the work of
Taking pictures,
documenting all these
documenting.
problems that are in the house due to our inability to repair things in a timely fashion. I'm not proud to stand up here and say that.
No.
You know, I feel like a fool, to be honest with you.
No, you shouldn't. I just want to make sure that Tyler is going to take into consideration.
Okay, well,
Well,
let me,
he asked me.
I don't mean to
He says,
cut
what
you
do
off."
you think your house is worth? I said, well, not what you're saying. And I said, I know I wouldn't pay for that. Matter of fact, 14 years ago, we had a home in Scranton, and matter of fact, when we were signing to sell the house, he got really sick and ended up out in Philly like 3 different times for heart issues and back issues. And when I took a time off of work that time to try to get the house in Scranton cleaned out and get up for sale. It took us about a year. We didn't even get, the prices of houses are crazy now because the house that we got in Scranton, we paid $25,500 for back in, oh my God. 1980. We only got 24 for it. And then now we're getting to this situation where we buy a house for 175, and we know, I wish it was worth that. I mean, if they're willing to give me the money, and I will be gladly to even move out of Pennsylvania and get into a good Republican state that's nice and red and stay there.
Yeah,
Because,
Yeah, the thing I wanted is to get at, before she's getting upset. But how do you go around and measure somebody's house? You don't know their life circumstances. Like, we didn't plan on me. I was told in well, I don't know the exact date, but the year that I bought the house, I was told I'd be dead in 2 weeks because of my heart. That didn't happen. Of course, I'm here, it's 14 years later, so. But it does limit what I can do. And then my back blew out. There's 6 discs that are gone on my back. So like I'm saying, life happens. Now you have somebody on the phone telling you, well, didn't you remodel in 16 years? Well, no, I didn't. I'm on Medicare, not Medicare, I'm on Social Security now. I mean, you tell me.
I just, you know, I just, like I said.
But I still don't understand. How do you go around, just take measurements and say, this is the price of the house, not knowing what's inside?
We all agree with you on that. We had no part of that. We agree with you.
I know you don't.
We-
But
And
we-
I feel as though it is a, it's a, not the American way, where I didn't even know people were on my property to even measure. I thought that was, I thought that was wrong. I don't allow people to come in my yard. I mean, we have dogs, for one. Thank God that they weren't out and got through the fence or anything and bit anybody. I mean, we had no knowledge. And it's just, it's, to me, it's not the American way.
So, in just
No,
for
we
the sake of time here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll get your information before we leave, and then
Okay, well,
look
here's
into
the-
it a little bit more for you.
Just one more thing I gotta say. We got a letter today. Now, with all the information we got,
Right.
but we're confused now because never getting the first one, okay? But from everything we gave them, it looks like they're saying now the house is worth $344,000.
Well, that's the old one, though.
We'll look
Be-
in- I-
that's
I'm gonna
the-
look
I think
into it.
that's
We
the
don't know
first-
what it is
That's
right
the
now.
first one that they sent us that we just got.
All right, so-
Because
so-
I think Samantha
wanna-
changed it, the one thing.
We'll
but-
talk about this one-on-one, so I
All
can
right.
get your, and then
Thank
I'll
you.
look into it.
Okay,
'cause-
thank you.
No, absolutely, and thanks for coming.
Any other questions? Sir?
Hi, I'm Andrew Massimilian. I represent West Mountain Preserve. We're a land preserve in Ransom Township. You've heard a lot of things right here about them giving this informal process and cutting it off, okay? Commissioner Chermack, can you tell us now that you're going to make sure that they live up to what you said was the June 1st deadline and make sure that people get that informal process that we're legally entitled to, is what you've said? Can you make that to tell us right now?
I just want to correct you. The statute says they have to have all the informals done by June 1st. Not necessarily that Tyler will go out to June 1st, but it's a shame that if Tyler doesn't do more
All I can do is see how many are still out there that need to have an informal and try to get them to do the extension. So
Well, aren't they under a contract? They don't do what's in their contract, and that includes presumably to make sure that this is done.
I'll look into what I can do for Tyler.
Okay, you also mentioned about when you email Tyler to carbon you on the email. What is your email address?
It's on the county website.
It's on the county website. Okay, very good. One last final copy. We're land preserve, so we have raw acreage there, and they just sent us bare minimal items. Obviously, we'd like to know what the comparables are because the fact that there are easements, as you said, you've got power line easements, you've got rights of way, you've got surface rights versus water rights versus mineral rights versus gas rights, and they all affect the value of the property. And I'm real incredulous if Tyler went to all the deed research to come up with that value. Okay.
It is my understanding Tyler did not have comparables for raw land. They used some formula.
Oh, they used a formula.
Yeah, however they derived, I don't know, but they did not have comparables for raw land. Like each, Abington Heights area is probably worth more than raw land than maybe Scranton or other areas. But my understanding is they did not have comparables for vacant land.
Okay, well, that's all the more reason to think that there's a very, very speculative value that they came up with.
I also, when I talked to them about land, they had, and this was in Jefferson Township, they had everything listed as usable land, you know, land that could be built on and things like that. But when we went up and talked to them and showed them maps of wetlands and things like that, they took that under consideration of what the land was, about the classification, and they typed down that the land was not the way that they had classified it. Now, I don't know what the outcome's going to be of that, but they did correct the definition of the use of the land.
Okay. Okay, well, there you have it, Commissioner. That's another reason why we have to get in for these informals, because it's speculation that they're going on, and there's a lot of money at stake here.
That's exactly why I said I'm trying to put the brakes on this to give us some more time to get these figures correct. So and that's one of the reasons.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time, gentlemen. Thank you.
Other questions? Can you take that microphone back to that lady back there, please? Oh, okay, after you, okay.
Hi, my name's Dawn. I live in Scott Township. They reassessed, of course, everything. The house, square footage is incorrect. I called them, they're arguing. I asked them for comparables. I said, how did you come upon the amount of the assessment on the house? And she said, due to other houses that were sold in the area. I asked her what houses. She said, well, you have to look on the Zillow or whatever and see what you can come up with. They would not give me comparables. I have 2 acres of land separate from the property of the home. It's undeveloped. It was $12,000 in the past. They assessed it for $99,000. They said part of the carport is on that land. I said, no, it's on the original land. Well, how do you know that? I said, because it wasn't there when I bought the house. And well, I don't know if we can change that. So I figured, okay, the house, you have the square footage wrong. You put this estimate up a lot higher. I'll just go to the courts and appeal it. But what do I do with the property? Because they're saying they don't think they can change it.
That's why you have the appeal.
That's why you'd have, you know, if you think they overvalued your property, you have the ability to go for a formal appeal before the Board of Assessment Appeals.
Okay, because I didn't get any second notice from them saying that they have taken anything into account.
You didn't
You
get
get
them
that
yet.
July 1st when
Yeah.
when the new assessment goes out.
And it would be in your best interest to engage in an appraiser to do a valuation of that property.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mr. Moran, if you can take that microphone back to that lady back there, please. Thank you.
There is a date that you can go back, and you can only go back that
Jim, yeah.
Yeah.
I think,
It was January
1st
1st,
of
2022 to July 1st of 2024.
yes.
J-
Yeah, when you guys do your comparison, make sure you only pick properties that sold in that period of time because they'll reject what you're saying.
Yeah.
Good point.
Right.
Thank you.
Get an appraiser and let them worry about it.
Yeah.
Here's my question.
Ma'am?
Okay, my question was about finding comparables. If you were to just look at, say, a square footage, number of rooms, even year that the house was built, how would you compare that? How would you compare a house that was been remodeled, you know, multiple times, everything is nice and new, with a property that pretty much doesn't change, you know, in 50 years? You know, that you know, everything is cosmetic, but it's like 50-year-old threadbare carpeting, linoleum with you know, holes in it, things like that. I mean, things are like that would affect the value of the property if you were going to sell it. Plus, you know, the property needing a new roof. They would affect the property value if I were to sell it, but that's not something you would find, you know, listed anywhere in you know, like a description of properties for sale.
A lot of times that's what the battle is in the commercial context. It's battling over what's a comparable versus what's not a comparable. So we have our appraiser saying these 5 properties are comparable properties. The taxing entity has their appraiser saying, well, I think these 5 are comparable properties. Well, no, I think that's wrong because those are down in Lehigh Valley. Ours are in Luzerne. It's a lot closer. It's this market. It's that. You get into the weeds, and that's a lot of times what it comes down to is to, you know, at the Court of Common Pleas level, who the judge believes, you know, they're expert for what reason, what comparables are what.
Another thing is that Tyler Technologies did not have the benefit of going into the house. They make assumptions, and if you get somebody who is familiar with the house, they can find comparable sales that are not only the same quality construction, but the condition might be much worse. They'll look for homes, you know, after they look at a home that is, say, tired, they'll look for other comparable sales that are tired homes. It's not just the year it was built.
Right. And that's the thing what Conrad just said. Like, for example, the comparables, they didn't give me, they just gave me the addresses. I looked up on Zillow and Realtor.com, and there are houses selling that were just remodeled.
Yeah.
You know, and it's something that you had just mentioned, that you may have something 20, 30 years old, and they're trying to say, oh, you're the same as something that was just recently remodeled with modern appliances and everything. And bottom line is you need an appraiser to come in and look at the inside of the house, and that's probably the best way.
And another thing, that if you hire an appraiser, when people sell their houses and it's listed on a realtor website or Zillow, they want to make the house look as beautiful as possible. Yes. So, and if you can say that your house is not that way, you have a condition argument when you go to appeal the taxes in that way.
Now, these appraisers, are they through real estate companies or through like property insurance
You can look
companies?
and go look online for real estate appraisers, there are probably 20 real estate residential appraisers in Lackawanna County that could do that kind of work for you.
Which Conrad does that work.
Yeah, well, yes.
Okay.
I thank you very much.
Hold it. Let's get the microphone back down here.
I'm
Yep.
sorry, it's not there.
And while we're waiting for the microphone to come down, when we're done, our panelists will stick around. They have business cards. If you want to contact them, they'll be happy to answer any additional questions you have after tonight.
Tyler's doing the fair market value of our properties, right?
Right,
I
yeah.
did the informal review. I'm assuming I'm going to get a letter with possibly an adjusted fair market value.
Right.
When do I, as a property owner, get the assessed value that the county's going to use to do my taxes?
It's the same thing. July 1st, the new tax bills are going to go out, no later than July 1st. And
This
that's going
coming
to tell
July?
you what your fair market value is your assessed value.
Well, no. On my tax bill,
What
I bought my property for $58,000.
your current tax bill has an assessed value as a fraction of what the fair market value.
So when do I find out what that assessed value is?
July 1st, it's your fair market value is now going to be your assessed value.
But that's why I want to.
Yeah, July 1st.
Yes.
Coming next. So I don't get that until I get my tax bill?
Your tax bill is it. You get no other notices. You got the first notice from Tyler for the informal review.
Right.
Okay? And now the next item you'll get from the county actually is going to be your, or from Tyler is going to be, it's not your tax bill.
It's not your bill, but
Not
it's
your
what,
bill, I'm
it's
sorry.
what your assessment and your
What your
new
assessment
taxes are
is.
going to
Yeah.
be.
I'm
Okay,
sorry.
so when I get my next notice, it's going to have what my
Yes,
property
I'm
is
sorry,
going to
yeah.
assess value.
Correct.
Yes.
Right.
based
on if Tyler adjusted my
Correct.
fair market
Right.
value.
Yep.
Right.
I
And at
apologize,
that
not
time,
your
if I
bill.
don't agree with that assessed value,
Then you can
I
appeal.
do the formal
Yep.
appeal.
You have
Right.
40 days to appeal.
From the date of the notice.
Right.
So you go to the Board of Assessment Appeals, three-panel board, as everybody mentioned, and that's when you bring forth your evidence. And again, the best evidence is appraisal or comparables that you have. But again, you can't tell what's inside.
Well, at the informal review, I emailed them pictures of my property outside
But you
and
don't
inside.
necessarily like the comparables, what the other houses inside are, unless they have pictures on the
You
real
know,
estate.
on my street, there's three properties that are approximately the same fair market value as mine, but then there's three other properties that are like 150 to 200,000. So I don't know,
I
what
think
comparable.
I think they
properties
averaged
do
them
I
out,
use?
because I know when I went on mine, there was high and low, and I think somehow they averaged them,
Yeah.
They average it out.
I believe.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so if anybody has any other questions, our panelists, like I said, will be sticking around. Oh, Mr. Moran sneaking up to the microphone.
I'm James Moran. I own Lackawanna Data. And one of the things that we have on our website, and Mr. Bosley would notice, is the different stuff that in 2008, when they did the appraisals, I have. And I've offered it to appraisers for the last probably about 10 years, and it works well. When Mr. Payne talks about the picture with the house that's disappearing, that comes from the old data that Tyler went out and just simply used. So they didn't update the photos, they just used old photos from 2008. So when you see your photo looks a little bit different, it's because they cut and pasted from 2008 and used it for the present. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask Commissioner Chermack for some closing comments, and we will conclude.
Okay, well, again, thank you, Howard, and thank you, this esteemed panel, and again, Dr. Jill Murray and Lackawanna College for hosting us here. As you can see, I think the biggest issue was inconsistencies, and that's what we've been seeing. It's a monumental task. Well over 100,000 properties in Lackawanna County. I know Patrick is still here. He sat through it after working all day. Pat does a great job. He's in our assessor's office doing the best he possibly can, trying to get this thing under control and done properly. But right now, we're in the hands of Tyler until we get their final numbers, then we'll go from there. But again, I appreciate everybody coming. If there's any more concerns, by all means, I encourage people to come to commissioners' meetings. They're every first and third Wednesday, 10 a.m., typically in the Commissioners' Conference Room in the county building on Wyoming Avenue. So, again, it was a great information. It was a long night, but I appreciate everyone's time. And if we need to, after these the new bills come back out, we may be doing this again, so stay tuned, but thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. Arrive home safely.